Right, tonight, Professor Makau Mutua may be paying for the sins of his past. His previous pronouncements on President Uhuru Kenyatta were a focal point of discussion during his CJ interview today. And meanwhile, are we playing the sexist card on American presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's illness? We put that in perspective in our discussions tonight. This is that time of the evening where comment and opinion dominate. We always keep it clean and keep them honest. My name is Julie Masika.
I expressed my view about the leadership at the time because I was convinced that I was right. So I don't take it back.
Hiyo report tulipokea na Kibaki tukiwa sisi tunaondoka kwa serikali. Sasa nyinyi mmekaa kule kwa bunge miaka 4. Bado unasema watu utaweka kwa bunge ijadiliwe.
Can't a girl have a sick day or two? Don't get me started, because when it comes to overqualified women having to try 100 times harder than underqualified men to get a break or even a level playing field, well, we know that story.
Now, the search for the country's next CJ became an intellectually stimulating debate after two professors of law, Professor Makau Mutua and Professor Githu Muigai, turned discussions into an academic tiff. It all started when Attorney General Githu Muigai asked Professor Makau Mutua, who is an applicant for the position of Chief Justice, to explain his academic credentials.
I was a student at the University of Nairobi from 1979 to May 1981.
Was that 2 years or 1 year?
That was 2 years.
2 years. So you made it to second year of the Nairobi University curriculum?
Actually, I almost finished my second year. But as fate would have it, I was, as some of you know, a student leader at the time. We organized students to protest the closing of political space. I was expelled from Nairobi. I went into exile in Tanzania. And Professor Okoth Ogendo, the late Professor Okoth Ogendo, was kind enough to forward my transcripts to the University of Dar es Salaam.
Right, welcome to News Sources. As I said, my name is Julie Masiga. Tonight, sitting in for my co-host Sharon Mamanyi, who can't be here. Before I start, let me just introduce my guests. To my immediate left or right, I'm so bad with left and right, is Njambi Muigai. She's a digital content specialist. And Betty Waitherero, who is a blogger and activist, and of course Faith Rono, who's a communication specialist. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
So you see there Professor Githu Muigai jumping right in with a technical kind of trap.
That was a shade.
Yes, to kind of technically from the get-go exclude Makau Mutua from the running. Mm-hmm. What did you make of that? Is it fair? But we know Githu Muigai to go for the jugular straight away. So, Jambi, what do you think of that?
I think first impressions were Githu Muigai did not sleep. He literally just worked really hard to have something to tackle essentially Makau Mutua, but he was well within his rights to question the qualifications because in Kenya, as is, you have to have practiced the common law.
Yes, he said something about having there's a specification.
Common law,
yes,
common
like
law jurisdiction, of which is not practiced essentially in Tanzania and even in the US.
In the US, actually it is, but I think he meant in the Commonwealth.
In the Commonwealth,
Yes,
that jurisdiction,
yes.
but it's not applicable in Kenya, and that's why Githu Muigai was going for it. So he was well within the right. Unfortunately, the whole exchange ended up being more like a bullfight between two people who couldn't agree.
Yeah, I think he was kind of trying to be a bit tricky by saying the 15 years of academic professorial experience that Mutua had does not fit into this category, strictly speaking. But he does have a wealth of experience, Betty.
I think that, this whole academic discussion to me was just, it's a little bit, it's been blown out of proportion. We're putting the weight of his candidacy on the education he has received, and like you said, he does have a wealth of experience. To me, that is what we should be interrogating. whether he's teaching in New York City or he's teaching in Nairobi, I don't know if that's really relevant. I do agree with Jambi about the your understanding of the law and the way the judicial system is set up, but again, is that really the job of the CJ? What's the job, And so let's focus on the experience that we want to attach to that position.
Yeah, but Faith, before I come to you, Jambi, then are we going to interpret this criteria strictly according to the letter of the law, or are we going to look at it in terms of also the spirit when it comes to kind of vetting these CJs? Because people have been asked questions about their personal beliefs, their religion. How do you reconcile that?
I think in this case, seeing Makau Mutua for who he is, the credentials was one of the way to pin him, to put him on the spot. So you should consider a lot more than just the fact that your credentials don't fit our jury system, so to speak. But in this case, as with the candidates that we've seen, they pick a spot and they kind of pin you to it. And this was Mutua's spot.
Yeah.
Can I say something? I thought as a strategy, I think it's a bit strange, because that is actually his strongest point.
Yes.
So it's a bit strange to even, that's why, to me, I'd not even focus on that. I'd look at where's the weak points for this guy. Your experience, how much time have you spent in Kenya? Do you pay tax? So how do you understand this city, this country, Things like that.
Quickly to Faith, what did you think? Was that like a killer strategy, literally?
I have very controversial opinions about this. First, I think the JSC was trying to just justify why they didn't even shortlist Makau Mutua in the first place. Article 166, Section B, I think 2B of the Constitution, it sets out.
I think I'll have to cut you off, and then we come right back, and you can finish your thought, because from then on the conversation swiftly moved to questions surrounding Makau Mutua's public pronouncements. AG Githu Muigai had charged that Professor Mutua is in a tight corner, having publicly declared that he does not recognize President Uhuru Kenyatta. However, Professor Mutua charged that those comments were made as a private citizen and not as a CJ.
The statement itself is not illegal. It's an expression of a free thought by a free citizen in a democratic state.
So private citizen, Makau Mutua there. Faith, you were saying before we went to the next topic.
I mean, I was just saying that Article 166, Section 3B actually of the Constitution sets out very clear considerations and what you need to have to become a CJ. And I think Makau Mutua has them, because he has experience as a distinguished professor in the New York. We must actually mention that the US practices Commonwealth law. And so I think for me, I just saw the AG, Professor Muigai, as trying to find a way of justifying as to why the JSC, even in the first place, didn't shortlist Makau. But I just want to say, even before that we come into the issue of the fact that Makau Mutua doesn't recognize the president as Uhuru Kenyatta as a president, I really like the way Commissioner Winfred questioned Makau's plan for the judiciary, because I think that is a very a critical issue. We should not look at the sideshows. Instead, we should look at what are you bringing to the table. I mean, we're staring at a judiciary that has lost public confidence.
Yeah, but before you get there, Faith, he has to be able to work with a president who he said he does not recognize.
Yeah.
So how does that relationship now
for me,
happen?
I don't know if he was aware, because I have the tweet that he did. I have to read this. I don't know that if he was aware that he'd go for this position,
he would have said what he said.
Yeah. But this was said in November 2015. That's 10 months ago. In 2013, I vowed I can't and won't recognize Uhuru Kenyatta as president. I've been proven right. Kenya is collapsing under his watch. This is 10 months ago.
Yeah.
So now, okay, he does have a point. It is free speech. It isn't an illegal statement to make. He did make it as a private citizen, but again, he wants us to forget that he has partnered up in the past with the opposition. His sentiments were reflected by the opposition. They were a repetition of what the opposition has said about the 2013
election, the petition.
The petition. So in that regard, I'll be like, okay, even I think the JSC should interrogate this. But I do agree with Faith on this in this one thing. What else is he bringing to the table? Can he fix the judiciary?
That's true, and I wonder who can fix the judiciary at this point. But Jambi, he's being interviewed for a job.
Yes.
This is a job to be the CJ of the Republic of Kenya. Surely, private citizen Makau Mutua and CJ, if he ever gets there, Makau Mutua are two different entities. Can't one operate independently of the other?
Actually, that's a very valid point to raise, because for the longest time we've been able to live with our own dual personalities, whereby I can be Jambi, the techie person, and then I can be the crazy Jambi with tattoos, and there's no problem. But when you're going,
Jambi, you have tattoos.
when you're going into public service, for example, and you put it in such a public platform, it's going to haunt you. And this is what we're seeing increasingly in our workplaces. And this tweet, to be honest, is not something that is going to get him off the hook. Unfortunately, the fact that he can say he cannot work, he can't and won't, it doesn't vindicate him at all.
And image and perception is actually everything, if you ask me, because today you cannot be saying that I cannot work with the president. I don't even recognize him as a president. And then the next minute you're saying it's my opinion, but I don't have an issue with it. I was actually shocked for him to say, it's not like I have an issue with the president. I can work very well with the executive.
Might as well be true, as I say, he was interviewing for a job, but time will tell. But moving on, well, in interviews conducted by the JSC, the questions surrounding the Supreme Court decision of 2013 have been carefully avoided. Today, however, there was no escaping this central question, as Professor Makau Mutua put his foot down and decided to discuss the matter after being constantly asked if he recognizes Uhuru Kenyatta as president.
Do many things so that it can earn my loyalty. I'm a citizen after all.
Okay, Professor, now let's go to specifics about the Raila petition.
Yes.
Tell us 3 issues or 3 areas which were of concern to you and how you will intend to improve as a Chief Justice.
Yes.
And if
the cases at the ICC have been dismissed. So part of that concern that I had, is addressed by that dismissal of the cases. If the cases were still ongoing, I would have concern.
Well, of course, he has to come back there with his own sort of legal argument, because it all became kind of technical at the end of the day. But he did say in an interview with The Standard that he didn't agree with either the IEBC or the Supreme Court in the 2013 election. So it does seem like it's a complete about turn, because now he wants to be the CJ. Do you think somebody should allow him to be?
And I'll insist on his right to disagree with the ruling. It is his right to look at the ruling and just plainly disagree with it. He needed to give us his reasons. He needed to tell us, okay, what exactly did you disagree with, and what was the problem? But to me, I call it faffing about. You just start talking about the ICC cases, and and to me, I was like, well, you have not been specific, because the clearing with the ICC happened much later. This particular case, this is where you had a problem with the ruling. Are you saying that even his running for election was something that you completely disagreed with? Because that's his constitutional right.
Well, he said the circumstances around both the president and the deputy even being on the ballot were what kind of swayed him against them and not them as people. And he felt that the election was not free and fair, like the IBC said it was. So therefore it followed that he didn't think the Supreme Court was right. But as a man who's going to be the CJ, how do you think he's going to take similar challenges to his court?
If in the past he has never believed in the Supreme Court, in the justice system of this country. I mean, we appreciate that we have challenges in the justice system, but he has mentioned and he has said this in public, that I don't believe in the ruling on the petition. So, and now he wants to be CJ. I think first you need to have faith and confidence in the system, so that even as you come in, you know exactly what are some of the areas that have challenges. But even then, I remember the tweets that actually Betty just read actually was generated after that. I think after that petition, it was saying that the petition was not fair, and the elections generally were not fair. Yeah. And then again, on the ICC issue, I remember when he was saying that the evidence the issue of evidence that the government actually did not give out information, did not support the ICC process. Yeah. So this is somebody who has by all means, showed that I cannot work with this government. So what happens if the president is brought back?
I think he was just opposed to them, not saying he can't work with them. He was just saying that he disagrees completely, which I think is his right. And I think maybe he has a unique understanding of things that he would like to change, given that he was so opposed.
Which is fine, and we encourage free thinking, but ultimately, lack of tact to go to an employer who you've bad-mouthed on public platforms for the longest time, and even in the most basic form. So you don't expect us to have faith in this guy who, for the longest time, has not shown any willingness to work or even understand where these guys are coming from.
And even as, like we mentioned earlier, it is his right to even have political opinions and to be, associated, freedom of association with the opposition. But these sentiments clearly, especially when he's talking about how unfair the elections were, he's ignoring the constitutional rights of the incumbent. And that, to me, is quite worrying, especially if you want to disagree.
Right on the buzzer there. Well, from Kenyan politics to American politics. Now, there have been many criticisms and counter-criticisms after Hillary Clinton's public health scare. Some have played the gender card, putting her on the spot for being female, yet many other presidents and presidential aspirants have fallen sick on the campaign trail and in office. Can't a girl have a sick day?
Imagine a world where you can't slow down, you can't rest, and you absolutely cannot get sick. This weekend, after attending a 9/11 memorial in New York, after more than a year of relentless campaigning, the Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton fell ill. And these pictures have boomeranged across the world. Several hours later, the campaign revealed the former Secretary of State had been diagnosed with pneumonia on Friday. But surely this can't be a case of a human being having an off day. Nope. Like so many things, Hillary, the media are having a field day, off to the races with another debilitating case of indignant outrage. This must be another typical Clinton conspiracy to fool them with a total transparency breakdown. Talk about transparency breakdown. What about Donald Trump's tax returns? Where are they? Can't a girl have a sick day or two? Don't get me started, because when it comes to overqualified women having to try 100 times harder than underqualified men to get a break or even a level playing field, well, we know that story. And seriously now, the 14th president of the United States, Franklin Pierce, rose to that role after earning the nickname Fainting Frank for twice collapsing in 2 battles in 1847. Who can ever forget George Bush Sr. throwing up all over the Japanese prime minister and then fainting at a state dinner? And he oversaw the fall of the Soviet Union and even won the first Gulf War. Considering the media outrage over Hillary failing to tell them that she had pneumonia on Friday, consider the media actively shielding some great American presidents, agreeing, for instance, not to show these photographs of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, whose polio kept him confined to a wheelchair. But did that stop his New Deal for America or winning World War II? And then there's everyone's favorite president, John F. Kennedy. Now, he saved the world from possible nuclear Armageddon during the Cuban Missile Crisis, called for a new frontier in space, and generally inspired whole generations around the globe, while the press kept secret his painful struggle with Addison's disease, leading the world in sickness and in health. If the boys can do it, why not the women?
Right. If I can just go through that list. Fainting Frank, fainting on the battlefield.
Roosevelt.
Yes. George Bush vomiting
Yeah.
on another head of state. Roosevelt with his polio. Of course, JFK with his debilitating disease. Hillary Clinton almost faints, and the world has caught pneumonia, so to speak.
It's so unfair.
You know, Reagan was shot. I mean, really,
Yes.
he was shot, and he was not treated this way. I agree, because Trump's campaign has been built on entirely sexist and bigoted rants against much of America, and especially against Hillary Clinton. The fact that she can get sick from time to time, we expect that. She's a human being.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and in fact, a conversation alternative conversation came up after this, where people were questioning Trump's mental health status,
which would have been questioned from the get-go. Quite frankly,
it should have been questioned from the get-go, and it turns out that in the 90s he had been institutionalized. So why don't we bring that up? You know,
but then
anytime he says something outrageous, we should just say, you know,
oh yeah, mental health issues. But that's okay.
And the
no shade, no shade.
The media was so unfair. I was just reading through what the Independent, for instance, reported, what the New York Times reported.
Across the board, both liberal and conservative media
exactly
came down really hard on her.
Yeah. I think it's actually very unfair to just politicize this issue. I kind of feel like this is Trump's, you know, way of championing it, if you can call it that way. But I just feel also like the media should have played a better role, you know, in reporting the entire issue.
I have to agree with Faith, because at this very instant, we're still also grappling with the fact that Donald Trump has issues with the charities, for example. We're not giving that as much headache as we should do. His tax returns, for example. No one is giving it as much media hype as this falling sick, fainting almost, this one time. So the media has failed, and was it 2 months ago when we did Clinton being announced, and the papers ran the photos of Bill Clinton instead of Hillary Clinton, sorry. So that is the sexist agenda that somehow the media has not moved away from.
But then on the other hand, do you think that as women we're very quick to fall back on it's just because I'm a woman card?
No, she was sick. It's pneumonia. It's not a female thing to have pneumonia.
Yeah. I mean,
but are we saying that she was attacked because she was sick or because she was female?
I believe she was attacked because she is female. And by the examples given by Christian Amanpour, you can see that consistently Reagan was shot, for crying out loud. I mean, really. He was shot.
Yes, he was actually shot and could have died, but still. Yes.
You know, and nobody said, oh my God, he didn't tell us that he was going to get shot. And
later on, he had Alzheimer's, and he was still in office and operating.
Yeah.
But then, do you think if this happened to Donald Trump at this point in the election, that people would have a similar response, or they'll just be like, he just got sick, he'll be back on the trail?
It's a very unfortunate conversation, if you ask me, because apart from being sexist, I would also just go back to the fact that the media is trying to politicize it and giving some sort of mileage to Donald Trump. So if it happened to Trump, I don't know how, it would be handled, but I kind of feel like because she's a woman, everybody is trying to just lash on her.
But Faith, is it sexist or is it being politicized?
It's both.
I mean, for me, I think it's more politicizing it. Yeah, because the way that the newspapers or the media has carried it, it has a very strong political angle rather than just a sexist angle.
But what about the fact that she didn't disclose that she had pneumonia and kind of kept people in the dark?
I don't think you need to tell me I am sick. I mean, I think it's private.
No, but as a presidential candidate, we need to know, because we want to vote you in as a president of the free world.
But George Bush vomited.
Yeah, he didn't tell anyone. I'm going to vomit.
No, he didn't have to tell anyone because no, because that was in public and he vomited and it was really embarrassing.
But it's a condition that would actually affect your work when you get to office. I mean, a sneeze, a cough, it's not something that should be made such a public
remember
deal.
That I think the time she fell a few years back when she was Secretary of State, had a concussion. She's had a few health issues. She's of course a woman of a certain age. She's not as she's not as vibrant as she used to be. What I want to ask is, should we be even a bit concerned, or should we just say these are sexist political?
To be very honest,
people?
the people backing, and this is not just about Hillary. Now, Hillary as an institution has a lot of people concerned for her health and her well-being, because she's going to be the ruler of the free world in America and what have you. It's very concerning. But if they feel that this is just a flu, this is just pneumonia, we don't have to make everybody panic, and appear to be hypochondriacs here. And I agree with that.
We don't need to blow it out of proportion, really. I think it's only pneumonia. It's not something out of this world.
It's only pneumonia.
Yeah, and for Clinton, it's a big thing, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me that the Western media is kind of like our media right here when it comes to coverage of women.
It's everything like our media right here. It's completely sexist, and the sexism intersects with the political opinions that are being driven through the media. So that's why you're seeing such a huge noise about this, whereas Donald Trump was institutionalized in the 1990s, and nobody's worried about that. I think, you know.
Just comparing with, I just remembered Anwar Guru. You know, when she was resigning, she mentioned that she had a problem with health issues. And the media actually blew it out of proportion. That was a story. Like, you know, she has health issues. Is it blood pressure?
No,
what is it?
She said health issues, or she said she was being given light duties, or
no, she asked for lighter duties.
Lighter duties because she has
because
health
of
issues.
health issues. So
I think that might have been slightly different from these circumstances.
It goes to show the kind of, you know, the media industry and how it actually weighs the kind of stories that we run. I think it's...
The Senate today conducted its second day of hearings considering the impeachment motion of Nyeri Governor Gachagua. Yesterday, the governor blamed his political rival Ephraim Maina for sponsoring his impeachment. Right, so second time around, this governor has been in trouble with impeachment. This time, it sailed through, like we like to say. 35 out of 47 MCAs voted for his ouster. Now it's before the Senate. The governors have come out to say he did nothing wrong. Where do we stand with this? Where are we going with these impeachment motions?
You know, that's one of the saddest parts about the devolution process and the way we have decided to set up the county government political system. You have several incidences across the country where the governors are being impeached by the MCAs for whatever reason, just barely into the term, you know, the term. And in Gashagua's case, just 1 year to an election cycle, which to me is a way of it's political brinkmanship. The governors are now being held at ransom unless they do what this collective or whichever majority is pushing for this, whatever they want him to do. He's going to face impeachment, and I feel that they're taking the rights of their constituents away from them. We when we put you in there, we expected you to last five good years and deliver during those 5 good years. But now in Nyeri, you're doing it twice. So what have you delivered in between the impeachments?
But we gave them the voice literally to speak for us. We trusted that they would do what we want. So should we assume they're doing what the people of Nyeri wanted, given that they actually spent a night in chambers because they were that passionate about removing this governor?
I have to point out that it's very rare to see these MCAs go out of their way for such a cause that does not favor them. That is what we've seen over time. So I'm a bit skeptical about the reason behind it, you know. But then again, when you look at Gachagua, he's now claiming that this guy sponsored his impeachment. He's the reason behind all his troubles. But he's yet to answer to all the charges that have been raised against him. Because if at all he had the answers and he had justification, then this MCAs would have nothing against him. So ultimately, these sideshows of Nani is responsible for this should be put aside and actually present the facts and finish this thing once and for all.
I also think we should give the MCAs the benefit of doubt, because if anything, they have raised very serious concerns. They're saying that the governor breached the public procurement, I think, and disposal act or something like that. Of course, gross misconduct, corruption, you know, and we have seen the issues that have come up, especially with regards to corruption. I think they are really valid issues, and we have a system in place. And the fact that this impeachment motion was also now passed to Senate is a good opportunity for Gachagua to prove that he's indeed, you know, is not corrupt, you know, he's not misusing office or something like that. Because at the end of the day, he's the CEO of the county, he's the chief executive officer, and the citizens have entrusted him with the resources that come to their
livelihood.
With actually basically everything. So and the MCAs are there to legislate, to make laws. There could be a political angle to it, but I also heard him say that I think the sponsor of this, the supposed sponsor of this motion has relatives in his office. And I was like, really? So this comes down again to, you know,
Politics.
employing relatives.
Nepotism, rather.
Yeah.
But then I think one of their biggest gripes was that he refused to answer to economic misconduct.
Yeah.
And then Governor Munya came out to say that he doesn't think the budget meets the threshold, or misusing money meets the threshold of removing a governor from office.
Which is shocking.
It may, oh God, I think it really makes, because when you're misusing public funds, this is our taxes. You know, it's taxpayers' money, so you cannot say that it doesn't meet the threshold to be impeached. Yeah.
Indeed, I believe we have met the threshold right there. But on now to the next story. The late Honorable William Timama has today been laid to rest at his Mochonyo home in Narok County. At his requiem mass yesterday, opposition leaders called on the government to table the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation report in Parliament in honor of this man because he fought for the land rights of the Maasai. What will Ntimama's legacy be?
Yote yako ndani ya Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report. Hiyo report tulipokea na Kibaki tukiwa sisi tunaondoka kwa serikali. Sasa nyinyi mmekaa kule kwa bunge miaka 4. Bado unasema watu utaweka kwa bunge ijadiliwe. Ilijadiliwa lini na nyinyi mko katika kipindi cha lala salama?
Well, there the TJRC is back, and one of the things that Raila actually said at the mass was that he would rather live on principle than die in denial and deceit, I believe he said, or deceit and denial, one of the two, but live in principle. And he was saying that the late William Timama was one of those men who stood on the courage of his convictions. But given that he actually fought for the land rights of the Maasai people, and in his honor, should we reopen the TJRC debate?
In fact, I would love for them to open it up, because I'm very sure that the history that Raila is remembering and the history that I'm remembering are two very different things, especially concerning Ntimama's legacy. And I agree that he did fight for the rights of the Maasai, but he literally fought for the rights of the Maasai, and it became violent, and that is part of that history as well. That is part of his legacy. So if that's not in the TJRC, it would be a great disservice to his memory. I think that that it should be encouraged that when we have former leaders, die off, all the truth should come out.
We should actually tell the truth
in fullness.
Yes.
And,
but it's the African way not to
why do we
speak
wait
ill of the
until
dead.
why do we wait until somebody dies and then we say, oh, we need to reopen this thing? I feel like if really we need to go back to this report and just relook at it, it should have happened, long time ago. But I just want to say that Timama was a very visionary leader. He definitely fought for the rights of the Maasai community, and he's been in leadership for over 25 years.
I think as Betty is saying, he did. Everybody has two sides, and there was a lot of bloodshed that happened when lots of people were in leadership, himself included. So should we just revise history and say that never happened?
No, and sorry to interrupt you. That's part of the thing that was in Uhuru Kenyatta's speech during the Jubilee Party launch, that we have, and he acknowledged this. One thing that I appreciated about him is that he said that we have had time and time again the opportunity to come together and to face the reality of the way we politicize our ethnicities and etc. And that coming together is also presented in the TJRC. So of course the pressure for him to table it, that's important as well. But we cannot pretend that our history does not make us who we are and how we view each other right now. And what he did when he was alive, or even 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago, that is all part of the genetic makeup of this nation. And I think it's very important we address it.
Agreed.
And I have to say, I think from when I was a young kid, I knew Ntimama before I even knew the Maasai people. He was the essence of the Ma people, and everything he did, good or bad, he did it through the eyes of the Ma people. That's why the Maasais are always celebrating him. But that said, in typical African culture, we tend to gloss over the bad and celebrate the good, which is understandable. But that's not the end. Like, for example, the Mau forest debacle, there's still a chance to save it, So we should not just decide, okay, he did this, there was bloodshed, and we're going to leave it at that. that and say, okay, we're done with that. Now it's time to actually stand up and take over those projects and actually make
See them
something
till
out
the
of it.
end.
Exactly.
And also something that struck me came out for me during the Requiem Mass and his burial was how the politicians took center stage and just went at it.
Clap back at a funeral.
Yes.
I remember the elders had said that this is not a political event, but the way the politics played out and the president trying to answer back Raila and saying, you know what, I'll not just sit back and keep quiet about what Raila said. I think for me it was a sad story because we really should have given Timama a very respectful. But as usual, Kenyans and Kenyan politicians, they have a way.
I agree. I think the family deserved a more peaceful and calmer send-off. But finally, did you ever dream of fighting for your country, like literally in the military? Well, your dreams are invalid if you weigh more than 54.5 kgs for men and 50 kgs for women. This is according to new KDF rules for the upcoming national recruitment exercise that ends on October 18th. Is this fair?
It's very
4.5
unfair.
For a man,
I'm
and 50 kgs.
By then I'm 50, so
So your dreams are a bit
I'm
invalid
kidding,
at
but
the face.
really, I think it's very unfair. If you're
But these people are going to on the
let me
going to the
ask you
front
something.
lines.
Sorry, you go ahead.
Okay. I don't know whether KDF misreported it, but ideally for universal recruitment, your height goes with your weight and your age.
Yeah.
Now, if you check the U.S. Army, well, they have a point whereby you enter your age, you enter your height, and then they can calculate the maximum weight you can be able to weigh so that you can be taken in. So for this one, I think there has to be some form of misrepresentation. A 50 kg woman, it's a very, you know.
You never know, she might be all muscle,
No,
lean and strong.
No, I don't know why the weight issue comes in though. I really don't understand.
Because they have to literally run and
be
fight.
fit.
They have
Yeah.
So, but think about it.
But
6
50 is
you have 6 feet tall men
Weighing 54
weighing 54.
How?
No, there's how that is not. I don't know. Is he sick? What's going? How can he? Does he have the energy to run? So I think there must be something wrong there.
Yeah.
It doesn't make
Possibly
sense.
there were other factors that come into play, like you say, like height, for example, and maybe muscle mass. Another thing they said is that women must not be pregnant, I think, when they're actually recruiting. And I do know that they have their issues with women being on the front line. I don't even know if in Kenya we allow our women to be on the front
In
line.
the infantry, you mean?
Yeah, or like go to battle. I think there are some restrictions.
I know for sure that there are some women who are in Somalia for the ongoing operation. But whether they go on the front line or not, I'm not sure. But I think for women, the reason why you're not allowed if you're pregnant, I guess it's because of the intense exercises that they do. That would be basically it. And of course, when you're 50, you're fit and
No, you're just 50. You're about to get fit.
oh yes, and probably come down or
We probably will never agree on the weight issues, as we're all women here. But I think I think back to our quick Twitter question that we asked today. We asked you, does Professor Makau Mutua have any chance of becoming Kenya's next Chief Justice? To sample a few views, I like this guy. Ologe says he's nuts, and nuts is good for a crazy society. Someone else says 0 chances of becoming CJ simply because he is too real and cannot be swayed by government. Yeah, those are some of the views that we've gotten today, but thank you so much for joining us on News Sources today. Thank you, Chambis, Betty, and Faith. It's been a fun ladies' night. Do join us next week. I have been Julie Masika.